Hey everyone, we're back with another Dopa breakdown. Today we have some amazing gameplay as usual from the king of solo queue. We're going to show you how Dopa smashes melee matchups in Korean Challenger with one of the games going against Faker. After watching this, you should have two more strategies to add to your arsenal when playing range vs melee. So let's start with the first game where Dopa is playing Orianna vs Sylas. At the start of the lane, notice Dopa isn't damaging anything. He isn't auto-attacking or using Q. We can tell right away what kind of strategy he's going for. This is a common strategy Dopa likes to use versus champions with strong all-ins like Irelia, Yasuo, Sylas, or Fizz. Instead of pushing, he'll try to let the wave push from level 1 and freeze from there. This isn't as easy as it sounds most of the time because it gives the enemy laner a minion advantage, which also turns into a level advantage. It can be hard to thin the wave perfectly, so it freezes without running out of mana or losing too many trades. So let's see how he does it. As we get back into the gameplay, as the first melee minions get low, Sylas uses E to grab them, with Dopa using his Q to grab all three and hit Sylas. A few things to note here. First, Dopa made sure not to hit any backline minions, and more importantly, watch his movement here. He stood here and knew Sylas would clear the wave and look to use E right away, so Dopa used Q and immediately moved to the left, reading it perfectly. After that, Dopa continues his game plan, not auto-attacking at all unless a minion is as low as possible. After killing these next two minions, they both hit level 2 and Sylas goes into trade. Since Dopa knows this is coming, he levels up his E instead of W to negate as much damage as possible, then returns damage with auto attacks. This was good for multiple reasons. First, Sylas does a lot of AoE damage with his passive autos, which plays into Dopa's game plan, and Dopa can run him down with single target damage, which was his auto attacks. He wins the trade extremely hard. After that, Sylas uses his E backwards to dodge Dopa's Q, then uses the second part of his E to grab this last hit. Right after grabbing it, Sylas uses W on Dopa. Let's pause here. If you were Dopa, what would you do now? You should be able to tell that Sylas is dead at this point. He used his single target ability, his W, to trade with Dopa, and that should aggro this entire cannon wave. Dopa can then run him down with auto attacks. So let's see what happens. As expected, Dopa runs him down and forces Sylas to flash away. This is one of the main benefits to a strategy like this. If the wave is close to your tower and the enemy messes up their trades, you can punish really hard by running them down the lane. Alright, after he gets Sylas flash, he knows he's going to recall and TP back to lane, so he starts pushing as fast as possible. As he does it, look how he's positioned. He's on the right side of the lane. Why do you think that is? The reason he's doing this is because his jungler's in the enemy bot side. As a mid laner, you always want to be hugging the side your jungler is on in case you get ganked, you can kite right to them. We can see this perfectly here when Graves is here to gank Dopa after Sylas finishes the TP. But Dopa pops his phase rush and starts kiting to his jungler. His top laner TPs in as well, which gets them to back off, but this is actually worse. If they kept chasing, Sylas would be missing a huge wave on his tower, and Dopa would be leading them right into his jungler where they would win the 2v2 really hard with Sylas only level 2. We don't know if the Graves and Sylas would have kept chasing, but it seemed like they would. Anyways, after Lulu ruins the play, Dopa goes back to mid and crashes the wave. After crashing it, what would you do next? A lot of players would say to recall here, since he has enough gold for at least a Dark Seal or Dorn's Ring, and probably is running low on corrupting pots. It's pretty common to recall at this point, and it's not necessarily wrong, it's just suboptimal. This is because Dopa has TP up and a good amount of health, so he wants to use up his health and mana to get damage on the Sylas without dying, so then he can TP back in with full resources and gold spent. So let's see what happens. Dopa looks to harass Sylas as much as possible when he goes for last hits, making him use a corrupting pot. As he's doing that, his jungler, Kindred, rotates to topside river, looking to get the second scuttle crab. She already got the one in the bottom river. You can tell it's about to go down in top river, with the enemy top having full prio and rotating down as well. Now Dopa is in a tricky spot. He has to push this wave and get it under tower before rotating. If he doesn't, it will freeze here and he'll lose a lot of CS. As Sylas moves over, Dopa stays focused on clearing the wave and crashes it, but his Gragas dies as soon as he does. Dopa knows two things at this point. First, Sylas wants to get back to this cannon wave on his tower as fast as possible. And two, Dopa is about to recall and TP back. So he wants to get as much damage on the Sylas as possible as he's running to the wave. Sylas knows he can't kill Dopa right here, so it's not worth actually trying to fight him. And he's missing all the CS in the tower. Now he's going to quickly recall, buy items, and TP back to lane. He TPs right on the minions, and Sylas goes for a trade as soon as it's done. Dopa gladly takes this trade as he knows Sylas has no flash or TP and the wave is pushing his way. Now, to punish this, what does Dopa have to do? Hint, it all comes down to the wave. To punish this, Dopa needs to prevent the wave from crashing on his tower. This will cause it to freeze. If Dopa freezes, Sylas can't recall without losing multiple waves worth of experience and gold, and if he tries to break the freeze, he's in danger of dying. So let's see what happens. Dopa is going to start auto-attacking the wave constantly until only 3 ranged minions are left. He's to make sure the red wave has more minions, but has to trim it because if the red wave stacks up too much, it will be too hard to freeze it. As the next waves arrive, now Dopa is going to keep thinning the wave, but also look to harass Sylas at the same time. He knows Sylas really needs to recall as he's out of potions, but knows he needs to crash the wave first. This puts a lot of pressure on the Sylas here and forces him to make a risky call. Sylas tries to use his abilities except his W to clear the wave, and use the minions to defend him. But Dopa planned ahead and thinned the wave so much there isn't enough minions to defend the Sylas, and he realizes he's dead. An absolute masterclass in wave management from Dopa here. He froze from the start, which gave him multiple good trades, and hard punished Sylas at level 2 to get his flash. Then he used up the rest of his potions and mana to harass Sylas as much as he could before TPing back to the lane, while getting the wave to push back to him. Dopa knew Sylas didn't have any potions and forced Sylas to either have to recall and lose multiple waves to the freeze, or try to clear it and survive. Sylas tried to clear it, but paid with his life. Alright, now let's move on to the next game where Dopa is up against Faker. Anyways, in this one, Dopa is on Orianna again versus Faker on Akali. At the start of the lane, look how different this is from the previous one. Dopa uses Q hitting all 6 minions and is constantly auto-attacking. We know Dopa is definitely not looking for a level 1 or 2 freeze here. Why would he do this versus Akali and not Sylas though? Well, think about this. How does Akali really trade with Ori before level 3? Akali has to play really safe in these levels as she doesn't have a gap closer that is too reliable. Dopa knows this and wants to abuse her early game as much as possible. So after Dopa gets a big push advantage and minions start to get low on the first wave, Faker walks up to use Q and grab a last hit. Dopa makes sure to hit him with his Q at the same time. Pretty much every CS Faker goes for, Dopa will pressure him for it. Dopa finishes clearing the wave and crashes on the tower and can look to harass Faker for every last hit now. He hits him with multiple Qs and auto attacks, getting a decent chunk of health. Also, as he was doing that, we could see the enemy Graves move from top side to bot side. Now watch what Dopa does. This is why I love his gameplay. He runs into bot river acting like he's gonna drop the ward, but just doesn't drop it. Then, look at the minimap pings. Faker pinging Dopa dropping a ward in river. Now Graves thinks bottom river is warded, which could affect his decision making and pathing, especially when this is a Kayn vs Graves matchup. If Graves invades Kayn, Kayn doesn't have many ways of winning that 1v1. Anyways, when Dopa gets back into lane, it's back to the same thing as before, harassing Akali when she goes for last hits. He wants to get as much health off her as possible before she hits level 3, when she can actually start trading reliably. If we pause here, which way is this wave pushing? Blue has 6 minions and red has 5. Since the red wave has a cannon, it's going to push towards Dopa. This is a very rare wave control tactic that Dopa used. He hard pushed the first wave, which then bounced and pushed towards him. I can normally tell why Dopa does what he does, but this time I'm stumped. I'm not sure why he wouldn't slow push 3 waves, but let us know what you think in the comments. But with the wave pushing back towards him, he's going to want to harass Akali and look to do the same thing that he did to the Sylas. Get her low enough that he can freeze and force her to take a bad reset. It's an Akali with Doran's shield, fleet, and second wind though, so it's hard for that harass to stick. Dopa looks to get extra aggressive here, but Graves shows up to gank from bot side. And it's funny, look what time he ganked from. Dopa went to put that ward down at 2 minutes. The ward lasts 90 seconds at this point in the game. And Graves is ganking as the fake ward would have disappeared. Coincidence? But either way, Dopa gets a big chunk on the Akali and then kites towards his jungler away from the Graves. They aren't dumb enough to keep chasing and focus on the wave instead, as Akali needs help pushing it so she can recall. But Dopa grabs the wave and doesn't let it crash, refreezing it and putting Faker in a bad spot again. He knows if they try to fight him, he can just kite to his king. Faker cancels his recall and comes back into lane looking to break the freeze. He uses his entire kit on the wave, and since Dopa is out of mana, he's forced to let him break it and recall. Now Dopa has to clear the next wave as fast as possible so he can get a reset of his own. This is where Dopa stands out from the rest of the pack though. He doesn't need to TP back to lane since Akali wouldn't be able to clear the wave before he got back, but he TPs back anyways. Why do you think he does this? He does it to get back to the same game plan as before. If he doesn't TP in, Akali can clear the waves and look to roam before he gets back, where she'll just hit level 6 first and Dopa can't do anything. Instead, he TPs back in and can start harassing just like before and try to freeze. So let's see what happens. As expected, Dopa is playing very aggressive, trying to poke as much as possible. He's up in Faker's face and chunks her to half health. They both hit level 6 now, where Akali really gets her kill pressure. Dopa isn't scared though and is playing very aggressive. He just stands in her shroud. He isn't worried about Akali's broken level 6 at all. As soon as she reappears, he goes all in, running her down. She tries to run into her top jungle, but then thinks she can turn and win the 1v1 and ults onto Dopa. Dopa makes a genius play and holds his Q and ult for this exact moment. It's very hard to hit Akali with Ori R, but after she uses her R, she has to wait 1 second before using the second part. Dopa knows this and takes advantage of this 1 second window. Then Akali uses her second ult through Dopa with Kayn waiting on the other side. That's why Dopa was kiting this way. Faker tries to flash away, but Kayn runs her down and kills her. So another masterclass in wave management and TP usage from Dopa. Even Faker couldn't deal with it. Alright guys, so as you can see, Dopa is the king of wave management. Every time we break down his gameplay, there's always more to learn. Applying it to your own games will be very tricky and will take practice, but even if you can't, it's still great to see how the game is played by the best players in the world.